Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ranth, here this morning on Friday, September 18th. I wasn't on last week. There wasn't much to talk about, but there's certainly a lot more to talk about this week. Still in the pandemic, but the biggest thing that's been happening in the world today is the fires. And of course, if you haven't already noticed, the Valley of Missoula is filled with smoke, which is considered unhealthy. I'll talk a little bit more about that. I got a bunch of new stuff, dubbing stuff. That's one of the stuffs. I got some pre-critic stuff. I got some city council stuff. And then a couple of more MCAT things happening in terms of us moving into the new library. Things are kind of going slow. Moving in is a lot easier than moving out of our current location, but more on that later. Let's talk a little bit about news, kicking things off. Smoke is a huge thing in the Valley of Missoula, and we have unhealthy levels dipping into the triple digits. Parts particulate matter, known as PM 2.5, and this is the particulate matter that causes some damage to people's lungs, exacerbates. Sorry, I'm trying to make a word while I'm talking, but it's worse on people who have lung disease, anybody with asthma, anybody who fall into those groups, to limit their exposure outside and avoid any kind of strenuous activity when you're outside during these unhealthy smoke-filled valleys of Missoula. There's also a couple other places around Montana that are also being affected by it as well. Hold on, let me just grab the map. So if we take a look at the more current map, as you can see right here, you can see that most of the western part of Montana is dealing with some major unhealthy levels of fires, and most of these fires are coming in from Oregon, Idaho, Washington, but not as big as the fires that are happening in Oregon. Salem, Oregon was encircled in fire along Highway 22, was blocked by flaming trees and boulders as the largest of 30 wildfires consuming Oregon raced through the canyons. 80 people were trapped in the Cascade Mountains and waited to be airlifted out by fire officials earlier this week. Fires in the west have caused more than these kinds of incidents that are happening in Salem, some smoke being seen as far as New York City. As of September 13th, 3.2 million acres have burned in the state of California. Over 1 million acres have burned in Oregon, compared to 680,000 acres in Washington state. As of September 11th, 40,000 people in Oregon have been instructed to evacuate, with half a million people waiting for accounting to about 10. Okay, so the wording of this is really weird. So in Oregon, half a million people are waiting, have received instructions to evacuate, and to prepare for evacuation. Let me rephrase that. But as the fires are spreading, there are other things that are also people were worried about spreading, and that is coronavirus, COVID-19. 60 schools in the state of Montana have had positive cases. Livingston had a case that made health officials worry about community spread, but were able to contact, trace, and prevent further spread. Park County Health Officer Dr. Laurel Disnick said positive cases in schools appear inevitable. Stopping them from spreading widely is possible, but not guaranteed. It's required careful planning and swift response. A lot of public health officials have put more into effect in terms of contact tracing. There are limited testing, but more and more testings are becoming available, and for people, they are asking that you be contacted by public health officials for testing in the state of Montana, as there are limited COVID tests. In Hardin, they paused some sports. Shepherd Schools closed the building for 2 days for cleaning, a policy administrators in that area soon nixed. Wolf Point closed buildings for longer. No large outbreaks have been confirmed. Officials in Bighorn County have found that children are often close contact in the community with a large number of multi-generational homes. Those children may have to quarantine or go on to test positive. Some of these, some of these words that I'm just kind of mixing and matching, they don't make sense. But there are some speculation among scientists that children are least likely to spread COVID less, while their older counterparts, teens, young adults, have a higher risk of spreading throughout the community. So far, local officials in Montana have focused efforts on contact tracing and using COVID tests for those who have contact with individuals who have tested positive. So even if you think you've contracted COVID-19, you can contact public health officials. You can talk to them, and most of the time, public health officials through contact tracing, which means they find out the people who have tested positive and then talk to all their close contacts, and that's how they have been kind of limiting tests for individuals in the state of Montana. There are limited resources as we are going further into this pandemic, as schools are opening and are working on this system, as well as I've talked to a couple kids in school as well, from my family as well, that they're doing kind of like a block schedule where half the kids go for 2 days of the week, another day, the day they spend on cleaning, and then the other half go to school for the next 2 days, and then they spend the next day cleaning. So a lot of these provisions are being put into place as Missoula schools are moving forward with their school year and doing online classes as well. All right, so speaking of online resources, MCAT provides most of the programs that you're about to see online at MCAT.org, and you can find these programs and more by logging on to MCAT.org. But without further ado, here are some of the new programs that are going to be airing on MCAT right now.
Then I was truly out of things to say, and she was out of stupid questions, and we stood there awkwardly. But you can't just be like, okay, we're done now, right? Because we're both waiting for the train. And after several seconds of this, I decided that the way to handle the situation was to pull out my phone and start playing Pokemon Go. And she was really angry with this. She scoffed and she stormed off. But guys, it is Pidgeotos before hose, okay? Every time I tell that story, somebody will come up to me afterwards and they'll be like, hey, Kaiser, that woman was hitting on you. I know that. I just don't know how to use that information to make my life any better. All right? Dating is really weird for me because I'm a 33-year-old software engineer, but I have the daddy issues of like a 19-year-old stripper. All right? Anytime that I'm swiping through a dating app past 37 pictures of women on paddleboards, I am not just evaluating what type of music they like and what their zodiac sign is. I'm also trying to figure out whether they could put out a burning well in Kuwait during the 90s, because that's what I need to fill that hole in my heart.
That's the Native American knowledge. To them, this is not discovery. They know this. This is their country. They've known it for millennia. As I talked earlier about, when you think about those trails and what they connect, they know this. To the society and culture that existed on the eastern seaboard, this is discovery. They are the core of discovery. To the people who are here, it's not. The knowledge that the Native Americans have is way, way more extensive than what the leading intellectuals on the eastern seaboard had.
And the interesting part about the railway is it is part of one of the terminations of the Trans-Siberian. So the Trans-Siberian splits and either goes to Kamchatka in Russia, or it splits and goes to Beijing, and which means it goes all the way through Mongolia. But this is the northernmost town on the Mongolian side. And so how it works on this trip, which was a little bit different, we were organized into teams, and there were little health clinics within these towns. And so we had our teams. So you can see on the upper right corner, that's Jane and Frederica getting a database set up so we could kind of track what we were seeing, because this is a little bit different. Mongolia is definitely a developed nation, but what were we seeing that was different here, so we could kind of track where we were at.
I was worried I wasn't going to be able to do a pre-critic, but man, I dug deep and I found that there's a lot of new stuff that are happening this week, and we're kicking off with a movie that went straight to streaming, no theatrical release. A couple big stars, you got Robert Pattinson, you got Tom Holland, but we bring you a movie starring Tom Spider-Man Holland in a movie where he has a southern accent, in a movie about people being like, this town don't like change, and you change in this town, get out of here. Then they'd be like, you ain't leaving, prepare for small town mob mentality. And so this movie is called The Devil All the Time. The family is running from a very violent past, only to be thrust into a new town with even more weird and strange quirks from a small town feel. It's The Devil All the Time, or An American Tale, Don't Go to the South, now streaming. Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous. From the people who like, hey, you know how these movies are big? Let's make a show out of these movies. Isn't this crazy? So anyways, we got a 3D CGI kind of animated series about a bunch of kids who go to Jurassic World, and adventures happen. And I'm assuming it's pretty low stakes because it looks pretty light and fluffy, so I'm pretty sure they'll just nearly escape all the dinosaurs as they're having adventures and overcoming obstacles that they couldn't overcome without the incentive of being chased by a dinosaur that wants to eat them. So anyways, the story talks about the kids who go to summer camp in Jurassic World. But this looks too family-friendly for you might see. Oh look, a carnivorous dinosaur. Should I go left or right? They look right at the camera with their Dora the Explorer dead eyes. Hey, stakes are low. And in this romp of the island of Isla Nublar, which, yeah, there's going to be like, oh, I remember that dinosaur from the Jurassic Park movie. Oh, that's the dinosaur, blah, 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 and all that stuff. So you can expect to see that. It's, you know, whatever. And up next, we got a video game that's coming out. No, actually not even coming out. It's being re-released with a new skin, otherwise known as basically just updating the graphics and just trying to grab some cash as much as they have. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2 Remake. Here I am, doing the best I can, and I ain't no Superman. If you know that song reference, you've played Tony Hawk Pro Skater. We dive back into the 90s ska band era where, in a big way, as they remake Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1+2, so they ignore, you know, the rest of them to 4. I think they did 4. Tony Hawk's Underground, Skate 1, Skate 2, and also Skate 3. We don't talk about Skate 3. But what was that BMX game that they did? Dave Mirra, Freestyle BMX. Anyways, get nostalgic with a game that was popular 20 years ago as they go for another cash grab with updated graphics. Boom. There you go. And that concludes Pre-Critic. Up next, we got a dubbing stuff called Snow Beast from the 1977 film of the same name. And without further ado, here's dubbing stuff. And up next, we've got some city council stuff. There's a lot of construction that they're planning to do. So I got all that and more after this.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I was hitting on younger ladies.
Oh, it's fine. I know how you are with little girls.
Well, let's ignore how much of a horrible person I am and let's talk about some business. Hello, waiter? Well, the reason I brought you here is I wanted to 80s style close down.
That's impossible.
Breadstick stat.
Well, somebody's hangry. What's your deal? What's going on?
I just want my unlimited breadsticks, if that's okay with God, and...
What is it? What's going on?
Nothing.
I know you're dabbling in Scientology.
Well, not exactly Scientology.
More like exactly? You're starting to scare us.
Well, out of all the things that I do every week, this is the one that scares you? I have so many secrets.
Well, first of all, no, I'm not going to give you any money for your whatever ascension program that you're in. We're not only scared, but we're really annoyed by you. You're always saying that the world's gonna end.
Well, it's gotta end sometime.
Well, I don't think it's gonna end in your lifetime. I think it's gonna end when the sun goes out.
Oh, well, that may be, my dear. But, that could happen tomorrow.
It could be happening right now. We could always live a little if you want to. We could, you know, live like we're dying, and maybe appreciate life a little bit more, if that's okay with you.
Oh, what would make you want to say that kind of stuff to me? Anyways.
Well, I want to get your hopes up, honey. This is my serious face, and I've got to be serious to you. We're not gonna happen. You come around here with your 40-plus-year-old good looks and you expect me to like you? It's not completely insane to not like you. In fact, you are kind of a beta male if you really think about it.
Is that what you think?
I do. And it's getting harder and harder to hide these feelings about you. Just so you know, having feelings for
Man,
someone
that's
isn't always
impossible. Okay, listen here. I'm,
good. Stalling for time as you're sipping out of that cup. We've known each other for many years now. We've had good times, we've had bad, we've had all sorts of weird times trying to save Christmas for the umpteenth time. Come on, Santa, get your stuff together. We can't just do it by ourselves. There comes a certain time in our lives where we must decide what path we need to take.
I just want to shut this ski lodge down and open a mega ski lodge for rich people.
And I support you 90% of the time, but this time, I can't just let those school kids go broke and just be on the streets. It's just not fair. It's not cool at all. Do you hear me? I gotta go. See you
Well,
later.
hold on a second. We haven't even eaten yet.
I'm not really that hungry.
Why don't you just relax? We'll talk more about this, and we can actually have a decent meal. So come on, hang out for a bit.
Can I order desserts?
As long as you run 3 miles afterwards.
Well, the city of Missoula had a nearly 4-hour meeting, and this was all informational stuff and opening public hearings for new construction, new permits, rezonings, a lot of stuff happening as well. But we're kicking things off with stormwater pollution prevention to make sure water runoff gets sent to the right places and replacing piping and so forth. Tracy Campbell, Regulatory Compliance Manager, gives the presentation, and this is what she had to say. And part of the reason why I showed you this is that part of the big thing that Missoula is going through right now is that they're basically combining all the water bills, wastewater, the water bill, the essential water bill, the water that the clean water that comes in. You got the runoff, stormwater runoff, all the water that goes directly back into the aquifer, and also wastewater where they treat the water and send it back into the river. So there's just a lot going on here as well, and they want to plan on doing this. This is the city plan to pump wastewater, stormwater together, and just to figure out with public works and how they can kind of move forward with permits for construction and replacing the piping for this. The city also plans to annex the parcel behind the movie theater off Mullen Road. So we're moving on to the next topic. So the stormwater thing was a brief presentation and opening for a public hearing. A lot of public hearings happened. They didn't have much discussion on this. They just kind of jumped right onto the next thing, which I'll be doing for my city council report. So there's a new property that's being rezoned and annexed. It's behind Carmack 12. It's by the new Walmart. If you live in Missoula, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But part of this is that they're going to be building more unit complexes, restaurant, parking, just a whole bunch of things to extend some of that new up the Mullen Road kind of development that's being done. But that's one of the things that they talked about it a little bit more. Jason Rice, Territorial Landworks, representing the developer, talks about this specific site behind the theater. And of course, like as I was saying, restaurants, mixed commercial and residential with a large apartment complex and room for restaurants in the area. But one of the biggest sites is the Riverfront Triangle. This is not to be confused with the Fox Triangle, which is the larger section of it, but the Riverfront Triangle, and this is the one just off of Broadway, right next to Taco John's, and they want to build kind of rezone the area for future constructions. And they have a bunch of rendered pictures of what it might look like, but these are not confirmed. So without further ado, here is Caitlin McCafferty with Development Services talking about the Riverfront Triangle. The biggest thing that they're doing is creating a trail. This is a throughway to connect, you have that trail. There's a bike walk trail that goes through Caris Park, but they want to help improve it and connect it to Broadway so there's an easier turnout. Originally the turnout would be for bikers just to keep on going down Front Street, where they would just basically scoop on down to the former site of the Fox Theater, which is like a large parking garage like in a ditch. And so part of this would go back to Title 19 of the downtown master plan. So Title 20 of the downtown master plan, blah 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 blah, is all about high density, low parking. But this one is try to be a little bit more different and go back into some of the old kind of way that downtown master plan was all about, which is Title 19. So to be up to code, they also want to avoid the 100-year floodplain, which requires the building to be 50 feet away from the river, floodplain, and all that stuff. And Caitlin McCaffrey talks about potential development in the area, and this is what she had to say. As you saw from those designs, there's a lot of big buildings, but these are some of the ideas that they had for many years, and they try to develop it with WGM Group. And speaking of WGM Group, Nick Kaufman talks about this site some more, and just so you know, when you see the image, the red is where they are having the proposed bike trail. So here's Nick Kaufman. Lack of parking has been an issue in Missoula, and the city has planned for a parking garage structure in the Riverfront Triangle area. And with the hospital parking moving off to Alder Street, the city can take advantage of this area and also surrounding areas to help kind of extend the downtown area, while also providing more amenities to be able to have parking and be a site for people to go to and see and hang out, and kind of create a new kind of park, a very unblighted area for development. And that's what they kind of wanted to do with Riverfront Triangle on the Fox Triangle. So far, there are many hearings, but this particular hearing got long in the planning board. And what we're talking about, Heron's Landing. Heron's Landing is a big development that's being proposed, and it's been kind of on the back burner for many, many years for an extension of the George Elmer Drive. And if you don't know that area, just kind of think of it as a bunch of houses are getting built behind a neighborhood which is called 44 Ranch Estates. 44 Ranch Estates is kind of like a fairly high-end kind of housing. They have a lot of beautiful houses, a large property acreage, but this new area is kind of not really mix and match with a lot of the high acreage in terms of land property, and it's going to be more developed in the Title 20, which is part of that whole like infill kind of deal. Where they want to do is, let's see, one of the biggest critiques of this area is that it's prime farmland that they want to be cultivated. During the planning board, they talked about this in length about this. I covered a couple of the planning boards, and they really talked about how they just don't want to waste the land, and they want to be able to use it for any future farmland or any kind of future farm-to-table type stuff. Dave DeGrampy from Development Services talks about it a little bit more. So the idea for development is to have residential, so 3 to 11 units per acre for residential areas. So far, a lot of the properties have about a house every for a half an acre, and they're looking into 3 to 11 per acre. And so this is for single to 2 unit properties with a minimum of 5,600 square feet. There's a common area in the middle for folks in the neighborhood. Developers want to use a neighborhood overlay, which was created to help neighborhoods match the aesthetic of what their neighborhood wants to look like, while also not being too tacky. Basically, that's what the whole neighborhood overlay is all about, which they passed about a year or so ago. Also, Build Grant is a huge deal. The Build Grant is a development with the federal government and is awarded, last year the city of Missoula, or county, was awarded $13 million of the Build Grant to kind of extend Mary Jane Boulevard. What's that called? I'm really blanking on the names, but there's supposed to be a 3-way street that's going to connect George Elmer Drive up and through Hellgate Elementary. So, also speaking of Hellgate Elementary, one of the things is Mariah, who is from 44 Ranch State, speaks on development during the public comment portion, and this is what she had to say. Half acres have a lot size of more than 21,000 square feet. Mariah thinks that the city hasn't taken into account safety and the amount of new kids, that potential that they have on the district, which is Hellgate Elementary. And that was one of the bigger concerns that happened in the area next to it, which is the England Boulevard, Flynn Lane, Mullen area neighborhood, because they added that 57.5 acres. I don't know why I remember that, but they annexed 57.5 acres in that Mullen area to have more development for more houses, which means if you have more houses, you have more families, more kids, more, the school needs to get bigger, and Hellgate Elementary has been impacted by a lot of higher populations, especially in those areas, because those are kind of like the fill-in areas for the city of Missoula to kind of help fill in the huge demand for people moving into the city of Missoula. But we can't necessarily curb those woes that people want to move to Missoula. We can't just be like, don't come to Missoula. So that's kind of like, so the developers are reactive. It's business. It's just business. So I don't want to get on one thing or another, because it's always a huge issue when you're developing neighborhoods, that a lot of people are just like, okay, you guys are developing these neighborhoods so fast that you're not giving much of the community input to have input on how we want this to look. So part of this rezoning was to create flexibility with high density homes and whatnot. The plan in the area would allow up to wait, hold on. That I kind of want to end it right there. And the city did continue to talk about development, and one of the things is that the city wanted to rezone Grant Creek. So Grant Creek, one of the things is that they wanted to rezone it to help the overlay with Title 20, but with the kind of which would also limit parking, which is since Grant Creek is so far away from amenities, it's very difficult to actually bike up Grant Creek. One of the biggest concerns is that they're filling in a whole bunch of new homes up Grant Creek, and are worried that if there's a fire that breaks out, that they would create a bottleneck for people trying to evacuate from the Grant Creek. And just to kind of make things kind of worse for a lot of people who actually live in Missoula, if you ever get a chance, climb up to the M, look down in the Missoula Valley, and I want you to think about all those trees and about how those trees have the potential to be caught on fire. Now just think about living in Missoula now. I'm not saying you shouldn't live in Missoula. I'm just saying is that there's a lot of trees in Missoula, and if there's a fire in Missoula, there's going to be a lot of trouble. But let's not go on my type 5, and let's go continue talking more about the my city council report. So the zoning failed. The city wanted to rezone it, and they eventually learned more information about it and be like, nah, we don't need to do any kind of rezoning, so it's going to be another kind of like 500 high unit rental complex for people, just to basically find a home when they move to the city of Missoula. This is a big impact in the area with some issues in terms of trail use, access, and overall lack of bike lanes in the area. Fire danger, like I said. The city plan to rezone in the area was voted down. Most of what the proposed was to growth inward policy, which would have a limited parking and higher density, which would be difficult to access the amenities, like I said. All of the public hearings, this meeting will be open until next Monday. So most of the meetings I've been talking about rezoning, creations and stuff like that, the public comment is still open, and you can log on to ci.missoula.mt.us for more information on how to get in contact and how to leave a public comment. You can leave the email. It's info@ci.missoula.mt.us. But you should also go to the website. It can help streamline some things as well to help moving forward on that. All right, so let's go over a lot of the things that are happening. Heron's Landing, which is the 4-4 Ranch, George Elmer, new suburban neighborhood that they're building. You got behind the Carmike 12. That's a big thing. Grant Creek. And this is a whole bunch of things that are happening in the city of Missoula, as well as basically as we're transitioning out of the money as the fiscal year 2021 budget hearing, and we're going into more of the permit hearing. So this is all about construction and future construction and development and all that stuff. So if you pay attention closely for the next couple of months, you will start noticing that there's a lot of permits and a lot of contractors that are going to be going through the city of Missoula to get their development approved. And starting in the spring of 2021 is when a lot of these projects are going to be greenlit and moving forward on that as well. Riverfront Triangle, that's a big thing as well. There's not much construction happening in that particular area, just a little bit of history. Ever since the Fox Theater closed, that site has basically kind of been owned and kind of held off by the city of Missoula for a big project since 1980. So it's kind of like a whole lifelong project. The city's just waiting for the right developer to develop there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for your city council report. Here is your latest City County Health Department update on what's going on with COVID.
Hi, my name is Cindy Farr, and I'm the Incident Commander for the Missoula City County Health Department's COVID-19 response. Today is September 16th, Wednesday, and this is our COVID weekly briefing. We've had 534 cumulative positive cases in Missoula County to date. That's up 75 new cases in the last week and 22 new cases since yesterday. We've had 440 recoveries and 3 deaths. 1 Missoula County resident is hospitalized in Missoula County currently, and we now have 91 active COVID-19 cases, which is nearly triple the number of active cases 1 week ago. We have currently identified just under 400 close contacts. Those active cases and their contacts will remain in isolation and quarantine, and they're being monitored and supported as needed. The state of Montana is reporting 9,431 cumulative COVID cases, which is up 190 new cases since yesterday. There are now 2,104 active cases with 106 active hospitalizations across the state of Montana. There have been 141 deaths related to COVID-19 statewide. As indicated by our case numbers, we're definitely seeing an increase in COVID activity in Missoula County. Our active COVID case rate per 100,000 people is currently at 58, which is up significantly from 33 last week. The state of Montana as a whole is seeing 198 active cases per 100,000 people, which is up from 190 last week. Our reproductive value in Missoula County is still holding below 1, which means that less than 1 person becomes infected by a person who has COVID-19. And that means that we're able to isolate and quarantine people very quickly, and it's helping to reduce the spread. But as we see our case numbers increasing, we can expect that reproductive value is also going to start increasing. As was announced last week, we are now posting University of Montana affiliated COVID data on our website. You will see with the updated cases today that we've seen a significant increase in cases associated with the University of Montana since last week. We have had 24 new associated cases since last week, with a total of 29 cases since August 12th. We are posting once a week, as the number has been so low that we wanted to make sure that we were protecting the privacy of those involved. If we do continue to see associated cases coming in at the current rate that they're coming in, we will begin reporting those numbers more frequently. The University of Montana associated cases are primarily associated with clusters, and most were identified through contact tracing. Seeing the cases in clusters is a good thing because it means that there are cases that are connected with each other, and they're not cases that are just sporadically cropping up without being connected to another case. We have been working very closely with the University of Montana leadership since the beginning of the pandemic to ensure that we're implementing good mitigation and prevention strategies on the University of Montana campus. They do have specific guidelines in place to protect from COVID spread in the university setting, and we just want to encourage everyone to continue to practice those same strategies outside of the campus in daily interactions with your friends, your coworkers, and your family. The other thing I want to talk about today is events. We've been hearing about events that get organized and then get canceled. Usually when an event gets canceled, it's because the event has been promoted prior to a plan being approved. I just want to revisit that if you're planning an event that includes more than 50 people, it's important to remember that it must be highly structured, and a written plan must be submitted, reviewed, and approved by the health department. This ensures that all levels of protection have been thought through and addressed prior to the event occurring. You can find guidance related to events on our website at missoula.co/cvirus. I also just want to remind everyone that you're going to see a little bit of a change to our website. We're hoping to get our new website launched by next week, and that new website will hopefully be easier to navigate than our current website. So that's it for my weekly briefing today. As always, you can check out our website for the most current data and information at missoula.co/cvirus. You can subscribe to me on YouTube under my name, Cindy Farr. That's CindyFarr. Click that little notification bell so that you get notified when additional videos are uploaded. You can call 258-INFO if you're having symptoms of COVID-19 and you would like to schedule a free test through our drive-through testing location. You can also call 258-INFO if you just have general questions about COVID-19 or want to know what kind of resources might be available for you in our community. And you can follow us on Facebook at the Missoula City County Health Department Facebook page. So that is it for today. Everybody stay healthy, and I will talk to you again next week.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is my wrap-up part of my show. MCAT, we've kind of hit the ball running with some sports games. MCAT's been doing sports with MCPS, Missoula County Public Schools, for a couple of years now. Things have kind of been different this year. They're trying to limit folks going to these games, so I've been hearing that they've been really relying on online sources and broadcasters and people, I mean, even like MCAT, to go to these games, film these games, and be able to get the games readily available to be online for people. For more information, you should more than likely subscribe to MCAT's YouTube channel. You can subscribe to our Facebook page. All you got to do is go to MCAT TV, and you should be able to find our MCAT YouTube channel, Missoula's community media resource. And you should be able to find live meetings, sports, just a bunch of things that MCAT's been covering for a lot of organizations that have been having trouble coming together and meeting in person, but we've been able to get their meetings that they've been able to do on Zoom, Microsoft Teams. There's just a lot of things that a lot of community meetings can actually do to help spread the word, and MCAT is here to help the community do that as well. So to get more information about this and to submit a program, you can go to mcat.org for more information. There's a how do I, and then submit a program or request a recording. MCAT's doing a lot of recordings. We're not doing any live streams for the rest of the month of September for the Zootown Arts Community Center, but we are doing one in the first Saturday in October. I believe that's October 3rd. But also, I haven't heard too much in terms of what the University of Montana is doing in terms of the homecoming parade, because MCAT's pretty normal when it comes to streaming and broadcasting the homecoming parade. So I'll let you know as soon as I know more information about that. What else? Let's see. Library. So you must be wondering when MCAT's actually going to be open for the public in the library. Again, I'm saying October. The library wants to open in October. That's like kind of like their final deal. We've been working on a couple of things here and there. We have all the spaces, all the furniture has basically kind of been moved in. I don't think there's too much MCAT stuff that actually has to be moved in. We are in the process of purchasing new lights for our lighting grid, so we're going to have a really nice, cool setup. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. We want to buy some lights that we can control with an iPad, so we can adjust the lighting, color, and all that stuff. And we're hoping to get some really nice LED lights for the studio. They don't get too hot. It doesn't get too hot in there. And also there's a nice window in the studio as well. Hopefully I'll be able to get a video, a finished library video in store for you guys sometime soon. But that's pretty much it for my morning show, and there's not much to talk about. We but just a word to the wise, we might not be doing a couple of the sports games this week, especially the ones that may take place outside, specifically because I don't want to put any of the workers in unhealthy air conditions. So I'm thinking that we might not be doing the football game this Friday, but we will plan on doing more of the indoor sports, volleyball and whatnot. But anyways, for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. There's a lot going on. There's always something going on. But take care, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.